What about volleyball? Do you present a trophy to the volleyball?
I've not presented the trophy in volleyball yet. We don't have a tournament in that, and I've made about 5 matches in my time as commissioner.
Commissioner, did you give any thought to having Ed Stewart, an All-American linebacker from Nebraska, who's in the Big 12 office, present the trophy?
Sure, we gave thought to everybody doing it, but Ed had received a number of messages as well that weren't very, were very complimentary, and so as we talked about it and just with the situation, I would have felt horrible if I'm not in the security business. I don't know that professionally, but I would have felt horrible if somebody had gone up there and something happened or they were mistreated in some fashion. And I want to say again, I've said this repeatedly, and want to make sure that it's clear and hopefully that it gets into any of the publications of the media that you have here, and that is that this is very clearly to me a very small minority of a tremendously classy fan base. And in fact, I think a lot of this has been flamed by some of the media who may be right on the blogs and other places that is not very complimentary and hasn't been for quite a while, and that has raised up the fringe element, the very, very fringe element of a enormously large amount of classy fans for Nebraska. And I've had nothing but great experiences until this latest episode with Nebraskans and their institution. I've said a number of times that I'm sorry to see the school go. I mean, it's been a great part of our conference, and there's all sorts of reasons that Nebraska folks have explained on what their decision was, but we're going to be a great conference going forward, and they're going to have a great experience in the Big Ten. But we're, we just had to make the choices that we made under very short time frame and very stressful situation.
How will you feel if you have to hand over the last Big 12 champion trophy to a team that's leaving the Big 12?
That's not a problem with me whatsoever. The young men on the field will determine the outcome of the game, and these players play in the Big 12 conference, and they've been Big 12 players since to this point in their careers. Many of them will be seniors and leaving, and if they win the trophy, they deserve to have it, and I'll be happy to give it to them.
What would be your biggest concern?
Hold on. Yeah.
What would be your biggest concern to only 10 football teams next year? I mean, you guys feel like it's going to work pretty well, but what would be your biggest concern going into next season?
I don't really have a negative to it at all. I mean, the only thing is the way you all perceive whether everybody else is at 12 and we're at 10. The feeling that I've gotten from our membership is that's a good thing. We were innovators when we went to 12. We're going back to 10, and we're going to be different. And perhaps history has been in the past, and I've said this a number of times, that we've had more teams in the national championship than any other conference. But there were 3 occasions when we might have had another team in the championship that was beaten, it was upset in our championship game. Maybe we'll get more opportunities in the national championship than ever, and maybe we'll have more opportunities for 2 teams in the BCS because the loser of the championship game will rarely get that opportunity.
Commissioner, which bowl game will the loser of tonight's game go to? Can you give us any idea of that?
No, not at this point. I mean, there are a number of bowls that are interested in both of these institutions if they happen to be the runner-up.
Dan, are you hopeful that starting next year you can maintain the number of bowl agreements that you currently have?
We're going to look at that after this season. I mean, it's going to be a challenge at for the very last bowl, because even historically with 12, we haven't provided a team every year for that position. So we'll have to talk to the Dallas Football Classic folks, but as long as we're also in a position with that bowl where we're in a backup role in a couple of years and the front role in the other years with Conference USA. So we'll just have to see how we go forward. But playing a nine game schedule, Mike, maybe this gets back to your questions. Playing a 9-game schedule, having 10 teams, might lead to having fewer bowl eligible teams at the end of the year. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Chuck?
Dan, just going a little farther afield, some of your conference commissioner colleagues have expressed concern about the NCAA's reinstatement ruling on on Cam Newton this week and maybe the precedent that was set on that. I was just wondering what your take was, especially given your NCAA background.
Yeah, that's a challenge, Chuck, to be able to analyze without fully being involved in the investigation and knowing what the facts are. I'm really troubled by the fact that we have a player who looks like that the father has tried to shop for a significant amount of money. I don't know whether, and I wouldn't unless I was an investigator, whether the player would say, this was not something I ever wanted. I even spoke out vehemently against it. I mean, we've seen situations where student athletes have come from family environments that aren't very healthy and where they may not want to be involved with the parent who's trying to do something. And so I hesitate to fully evaluate it, but I do think we need to address it. And I know the commissioners are going to talk about it soon with the NCAA in regard to how are we going to take on this matter in the future, because it is rife with the ability for being able to try to sell the player or the son in this instance, and then be absolved of any problems if it doesn't work out or there isn't some sort of play on it.
Is this a sad day for the conference, knowing that it's kind of the twilight of this era? And what are your feelings on knowing that there's not going to be a championship game for a few years and only 10 teams and all that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would qualify it as sad as much as it's certainly there's some there's some feelings, wistful feelings about the loss of the game and having two programs that are leaving, but there's also the hope and the anticipation of I think a very good and bright future as we go forward, and so those are kind of mixed feelings. I have some ambivalence about it. I've said in the past that it's too bad that we're losing these two programs that have meant so much for so long, but at the same time, every challenge, every difficulty presents an opportunity for something else. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity for something else. I think football and men's basketball, women's basketball, we're going to be in a very strong position going forward. Playing a double round robin in basketball is a great situation for our conference, and round robin in football is terrific as well. So, there's ambivalence there, no question.